This is your Wednesday Daily Delivery. I am Michael Rand. Lots to get to today. NFL stuff coming up here in a little bit. It was a huge day of news on Tuesday in the league. Got to get to the Russell Wilson blockbuster trade. Got to get to Aaron Rodgers deciding to stay in Green Bay at least for one more season and what that means for the Vikings. Got to get to the Wild here in a little bit. We've talked about them enough when they've been struggling. Got to give them some credit for a nice win on Tuesday night against a good Rangers team, and kind of a solid, maybe get them back into the flow of how they had been playing earlier this season kind of victory. So a good one for the Wild on Tuesday night to feel better about themselves. Maybe get a little baseball talk as well, because it sounds like things have gotten a little bit more optimistic after a marathon bargaining session on Tuesday. Games have not been canceled yet. Another set of games, I should say, that we've already lost the first week of the season, but further games. Yesterday was supposed to be the deadline for that, but they've extended it because things have gotten closer, it sounds like, to an agreement. So we will need to talk about that a little bit as well. But first, what did I miss? Yeah, like I said at the jump, NFL, Russell Wilson traded from the Seahawks to the Broncos. Aaron Rodgers, not long before the Russell Wilson trade, not a coincidence probably, it is announced that he is staying in Green Bay, although there's some muddied waters still about for how long it is. Originally, it was reported that it was a 4-year, $200 million contract. There was $153 million guaranteed, which would have signaled that he was going to be there for a very long time. But he clarified that on Twitter, which is, nice of him. But basically he said, "Hey, everyone, just wanted to clear some things up. Yes, I will be playing with the Packers next year. However, reports about me signing a contract are inaccurate, as are the supposed terms of the contracts I quote-unquote signed. I'm very excited to be back. #year 18. So what does all of this mean? Well, to me, and to Mark Craig, perhaps, who wrote about this for the Star Tribune, it means that Kirk Cousins comes to the forefront again, and the decision on what the Vikings will do with him becomes front and center, and at least the Vikings have a certain amount of clarity on that as they enter the new league year in exactly 1 week from today. So what it means is Packers have Aaron Rodgers next season. So that means Green Bay is the prohibitive favorite in the NFC North. They've won. They've been great. They've won 39 regular season games with Matt LaFleur and Aaron Rodgers over the last 3 seasons. They've won the division each of those seasons. The Vikings got into the playoffs one of those years, 2019, but missed the playoffs the other 2 years. So if you are the Vikings, if you are the new brain trust with Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, assistants under him, and head coach Kevin O'Connell, how are you looking at that piece of the puzzle and examining your chances in 2022 and even perhaps beyond if Aaron Rodgers really is going to be in Green Bay for more than just the 2022 season? Well, let's get to that in a minute, because I think the Russell Wilson trade is also a piece of that puzzle, because you thought Denver might be a destination for Kirk Cousins if they couldn't get anything else done with Aaron Rodgers, but then the Russell Wilson trade pops up. They gave up a ton to get him, a couple first-round picks, quarterback Drew Lock, some other draft capital, tight end Noah Fant. Lots going back to Seattle in that deal, but Seattle looks like they're going to bottom out. By the way, they look like they're in full-on rebuild, releasing linebacker Bobby Wagner as well on Tuesday. So you got that piece of it. Denver no longer a destination potentially for Kirk Cousins. However, a lot of other teams need quarterbacks this offseason, and if Russell Wilson is already off the table, he's been moved. If Aaron Rodgers is off the table, he is staying in Green Bay. Kirk Cousins perhaps becomes the best, sure thing quarterback option for a team looking to upgrade. Now, you've got other options that are potentially interesting. A guy like Jameis Winston was off to a really good start last season, but he's still somewhat volatile, erratic in his play, and, coming off that injury, don't know exactly what's going to happen there. Deshaun Watson, a huge question mark because of his legal situation. You would argue certainly that he is a better pure quarterback option than Kirk Cousins, but because of the legal situation and because of, the whatever comes with that, even if he was to get traded, that piece of it becomes a dicier proposition for a team that might want to make a trade for a quarterback. So you've got a window here if you are the Vikings where you're saying, well, we're probably not going to be able to compete for the division in 2022 given the holes on our roster and given what just happened in Green Bay. And you're looking at the quarterback market and you're saying, well, we're also in this little sweet spot where we might have an attractive quarterback to another team that is either one piece away from competing in a meaningful way, or a team that just wants an upgrade, has been stuck in quarterback, purgatory for a long time, just can't get that position right in any way, shape, or form. You know what you're getting with Kirk Cousins. It's not elite level quarterback play, but if you put him in a good situation, and even if you put him in only an okay situation, he is going to give you a slightly above average season. He is an above average quarterback in a lot of different ways. So can the Vikings look at this and say, we've got an opportunity here. We've got, this is our window right now. It might mean some short-term pain in 2022. It might mean hitting reset a little bit more than they wanted to, but if you want to be competitive in 2023 and beyond, I think you just need a new quarterback situation here at some point. And right now is an opportunity to not only clarify that, start over at the position, but also maybe add some draft capital in return. So, going to be interesting when the new league year starts. I'm curious to see how this all plays out, but my instinct is that the Vikings now will make a big push to try to trade Kirk Cousins, and that is why when Kwesi Adofo-Mensah talked at the scouting combine a week ago, he was saying everything's in play. Everything's in play, and to me right now, the play is to trade Kirk Cousins.
Take a playcation to Mystic Lake for 24/7 gaming, fun restaurants and bars, and luxurious hotel rooms. And join Club M to bask in the rewards. Follow the lights to Mystic Lake, where every day is play day.
Back on Daily Delivery for another appearance, Chris Hine, Star Tribune Timberwolves beat writer, covering one of the more successful teams in town. Those words don't come out of my mouth easily, Chris, but this team has been very good most of the year, and definitely since the All-Star break, making up, putting some wins, banking some wins in games they should win, but the games they don't always win. Taking care of business, professional efforts. I think the game against Portland the other night was a perfect example. Portland, no business really trying to win that game, but the Wolves made sure of it. They didn't give them any scent of, hey, you might hang around and win this game. So what do you make of what you've seen, particularly post break from this team?
Yeah, this was a tough stretch for them, on the schedule, just in terms of the layout of it. They had three sets of back-to-backs right out of the gate. And I think you saw Saturday night in that the first Portland game, it caught up to them a little bit. They had multiple guys with injuries in that game. They're getting banged up. So I think the schedule was really tough, even though they just had almost a week-long break out of the All-Star break. But last night was an opportunity where you can rest D'Angelo Russell and Anthony Edwards, and you still win by 40+ points, because Portland, let's just say, I don't know how hard Portland is trying as an organization to win down the stretch here, but it certainly looked like a tank job with that roster they threw on the floor the other night. But they have Oklahoma City coming up tonight, and then you've got Orlando on Friday night, and those are probably two more games they should win. And at the end of that, you've got what should be a 7-game winning streak for this team, and it'll be the longest streak in, I want to say, 18 years or something like that. They haven't had a 6-game win streak in a long time. So, a little bit of a franchise milestone on the line against the Thunder.
That means they've got another back-to-back then, because Saturday is at Miami, and that starts a string of not necessarily right off the bat, because then you get San Antonio, you get the Lakers. The Lakers haven't been great lately. San Antonio is certainly not a great team this year. But then after that, Milwaukee, Dallas, Phoenix, Dallas, Boston, Toronto, Denver. I mean, that's a stretch that'll tell you a lot about kind of where this team is. But where we think this team is firmly in the top 8 at this point. And still, if they would have gotten maybe a little bit of help, could have been pushing for that 6th seed while they put together this stretch of 6 wins in 7 games out of the break. The teams above them though won't stop winning either.
No, and that's the issue is they needed a little luck that one of these teams, Denver or Dallas, would take a tumble, and that just hasn't happened. Both of them have played really well. Alongside the Wolves playing really well. And when you need to make up 2.5, 3-ish games or so, that's still a significant gap to make up with only 17 or so games left in the season. They do have 2 matchups against Dallas coming up. They have 1 against Denver, so they will see these guys head to head a couple times, especially with Dallas down the stretch of the season here. So those are direct opportunities to try to make up some ground. But, other than that, they're going to have to beat some of these good teams that they're facing over the next couple of weeks here, like Milwaukee and Phoenix, if they want to stay afloat in this chance to get to the 6th seed. And has a lot of ramifications for them because, you look at the play-in field and the Clippers, if they get Paul George back, that's a team that beat the Wolves 3 times this year. Now, the Wolves might be a different team than then because that was very early in the season, and the Clippers will be a little different as well, especially with some new personnel, but I don't think they got any worse. And the Pelicans potentially are a bad matchup for the Wolves, I think, because Valanciunas always gives Cat trouble. They've got McCollum who can go off. So can Brandon Ingram. And New Orleans is one of the best defensive rebounding teams in the league, while the Wolves are one of the best offensive rebounding teams in the league, while the Wolves are one of the worst defensive rebounding teams in the league. So that could be a tricky matchup for them in the play-in scenario. So I do think that there's still a lot at stake for them to get to that 6th seed because it's not a given that they get out of that play-in mix.
Been doing it lately without Anthony Edwards. He's been, out. What's the update there? Is this more a function of, let a lingering thing heal? And what do you make of them looking quite good, even without Anthony Edwards, who is ostensibly one of their 3 best players?
Sure. I think he's trending back towards playing. Chris Finch said at Tuesday's practice that he was trending in that direction. I saw him at shoot around on Monday, scrimmaging afterwards with some players and staff, which was a good sign that he's getting closer and closer. So this knee issue is something they're going to have to manage the rest of the season, and they might have to give him, some spells of games off coming up here. And it's all kind of dependent on how his knee responds. I think the ultimate goal is to obviously have him ready for the end of the season, to make a playoff push or for those playing games. So, it's just being mindful, and I think we've seen over the last few weeks what it looks like when Anthony Edwards is healthy and when he might be ailing a little bit. You can just look at the box score really and see. So, we'll see how he manages it, how it either affects him or doesn't affect him. But I think it was good that he didn't really have to play in this stretch of games with a lot of back-to-backs, that they were able to rest him and still get some wins during that time. I think that, I don't know if this is a coincidence or not. I do think that their ball movement has improved since he went out of the lineup. I think those first couple of games, that was kind of what Chris Finch and the team was talking about, was that their ball movement wasn't as crisp as they would like it coming out of the All-Star break. They sit Edwards, and maybe the opponent has something to do with it too, as they've played some of these lesser teams. But I do think that the offense got back into a rhythm in terms of where they want it to be when he went out of the lineup. And maybe that has something to do with the fact that he was hurt. and that it just wasn't as efficient of an offense with him in there than if he just took a couple games off.
Well, when you watch the offense right now, it does look very much like they know exactly what they want to do on every possession. Like the one pass leads to another, someone runs out of them, then you're going to go around and try to, get to the basket. If someone cuts that off, you're going to find a shooter in the corner. Like it does seem like whatever amount of time it kind of took to get fully familiar with the way Chris Finch wanted them to play on offense feels like they're there right now. Cause you've even just watching some of the recent games, the Portland game the other night, even though they weren't making a ton of shots early, like it feels like they have a good idea of what they want to do on every possession, and that everybody kind of has an idea of how to play the way they want to play.
Yeah, I think they've, around the halfway point of the season, they've gotten to that point. Chris Finch likes to say it's a very rhythmic offense. So, you can fall into rhythm, you can fall out of rhythm. But more often than not lately, they've been in the rhythm, save for a couple of games there. I think Jordan McLaughlin has helped with that coming off the bench. I think he runs the offense the way that they really want it to run. He's quick with the ball, bringing it up, quick getting them into things, quick distributing it, just very quick all the time. Fast-paced offense doesn't necessarily mean that you're always running in transition and getting fast breaks. It's just that you're doing regular things at a fast clip. And I think he really helps with that. I think you've seen Karl have a really good stretch of weeks here. He's been phenomenal. No matter what teams have thrown at him, he's made the right plays. He's dominated when they needed him to dominate scoring. He's facilitated when they need him to facilitate. He's had a really strong couple of weeks here. And D'Angelo Russell, I think, when he's been in there, has really run the show well, especially late in games, as he's done all season. I really do think that they're clicking right now, and you're seeing that rhythm creates better looks for guys like Malik Beasley, Taurean Prince, who have to knock down these open shots that are created in the rhythm of the offense. And when you get them the ball, in terms of like maybe a swing situation where the ball swings around to them, they're wide open, as opposed to just passing it to them and they jack up a three. It's a little more comfortable rhythm that they can get in shooting threes. And I think you've seen it with their increased percentages as the year has gone on. Yeah,
that's interesting. You brought up Towns. I mean, we've talked about this, I think maybe even the last time you were on, but he's playing as well as I've seen him play, just inside, outside, kind of learning some subtleties of, not getting those offensive fouls like he was quite as much, or at least as I've watched, playing frankly at what I would think of as an all NBA level, at least for the last couple months. And, playing well enough that I feel like he's, emerging into that kind of, all NBA would mean top 15. I feel like he's playing like a top 15 player right now, and maybe even better than that, like someone who could be even better if he kind of keeps building on this. What have you seen out of him? What do you hear from him? And what do you, especially talking to Chris Finch, what's his assessment of where Cat's game is right now?
No, I think that's right. I think he's operating at the peak of his powers right now. I think, it's the last month plus has been some of the best basketball he's played. One thing that he's done that has been different from the start of the season and different from other points in his career is he's lining it up at the foul line, or the foul line extended, and taking guys off the dribble right now. It's harder for them to double him. And if they do come with a double, it's a little easier for him to get rid of the ball, as opposed to just standing with his back to the basket in the post. The pass comes in, here comes the double, and he's kind of stuck there. He's getting the ball in space more. That's been a big adjustment that they've made. And really, he's dominating when he should be dominating. He's, like you said, he's not committing as many offensive fouls as he was before. He's playing more under control, more composed. Sure, he still, has his fits with officials every now and then, but I think the volume turned down from where it was earlier in the season, when it was, I feel like, more of a problem than it is now. So yeah, it's been a fantastic last, I guess you could say 2/3 of the season here for Karl, after maybe the first third was a little choppier. And when he's playing like he is, everything else in the offense can just fall into place around him like that.
What's been interesting to me too is that the bench has been pretty good in a lot of these games. And you mentioned McLaughlin, who I thought was in danger of getting run out of the league earlier this year. I didn't like what he was doing at all. He's been a lot better lately. You've been getting something from Taurean Prince, like you said, Malik Beasley. If Vanderbilt is starting, and Edwards is healthy, Jaden McDaniels is off the bench, Jalen Noel, and I'm sure I'm forgetting, Naz Reid. Like they go relatively deep, and when everybody's healthy, it's almost like, I don't know, an embarrassment of riches is not the way to put it, but they go deep enough that when you lose 2 or 3 guys, it just kind of means, okay, this guy that maybe he was only playing 10 minutes gets 25, and it's not that big of a deal. It's pretty impressive how they've built up this depth, in a lot of cases with guys that aren't necessarily making a lot of money.
Yeah. And I think Jalen Noel is the perfect example of this. Edwards goes out, last week. He plays a little bit coming off the bench when Edwards goes out, but still not really getting a ton of minutes. But then Saturday comes around and you see Edwards is still out. Taurean Prince goes out with back spasms. Malik Beasley gets ejected. And what does Jalen Noel do? Comes off the bench and scores 22 points and helps them, prevent an upset in that first Portland game. That to me is kind of where this team is at right now. It's guys might be in and out of the rotation. They might be sitting for a while, but then, when their number is called, they've responded. And some of them have responded in a big way. Chris Finch admitted, he's like, I didn't know if our bench was going to be capable of this early in the season because it wasn't looking good. Especially when they started like 2-7 or whatever it was that they started, but they've really rounded into form. I said, it kind of all falls into a rhythm on offense, and they found something in the around December and January that really helped them, and they finally got there, and they haven't really let up since. And it's really improved everybody. The bench's shooting has bounced back. Beasley's shooting has gotten much more consistent of late. Taurean Prince has gotten back to where he is as a shooter for his career. Like we talked about, McLaughlin ended up, like you said, coming out of purgatory there and really helping to resurrect this bench unit with his play the second half of the season here. So, it all kind of turned, maybe around the COVID protocol time, I think is a good point for the bench, where those guys got some extended minutes and saw what they can do and have translated that, going forward here.
Let the ball do the work, as Chris Finch likes to say. Chris Hine, final thought. Seems like there've been a lot of comments that players, I even heard Finch the other day talking about, he got asked about it. We got talking about the crowd at Target Center, that it's getting better. You had the whole D'Lo interaction with the crowd early in the year, calling them out, and now, praising them. I talk to Wolves fans plenty, and I'm sure you hear from them a lot too. What do you think they make of this? Are they just enjoying this? Are they still kind of like, is it really okay to believe in this team because we've been hurt so much? What do you think is the mindset of the people who watch the team you cover right now?
It's interesting. I definitely think that the atmosphere has gotten a lot better at Target Center, and that just comes with winning. I think some of that, right? I think the team itself is generally an enjoyable team to watch, especially when Anthony Edwards is out there healthy doing his thing. Like, one of the most entertaining players in the league for sure. I feel like this team is just lost for so long that, in the back of your head, this team this year, the odds of them going all the way are incredibly small. So in some way, shape, or form, the season's always going to end in disappointment, right? You know that on some level. But I think that they've just, they've been playing so well as a team. they have some individual players who are a lot of fun to watch. And it's just like, we haven't had entertaining basketball for so long here. Just enjoy the ride for a little bit, expectations or your sense of doom be damned. Just try to enjoy it for a little bit, and then let the heartache and disappointment come a little later. Maybe that's where they're at, right? Is that where you're at? I don't know.
I guess that's the Carole King song that never got written. Let the heartache and let that come later.
Let the heartache come later.
Let the heartache come later. I think that's about right. That's probably a good place to end. I think it does feel like, I think people they understand that there's a limit to this year's team, that, getting to the first round of the playoffs is probably the ceiling, and, maybe taking a game or two off of, Golden State, or if it happened to be Memphis, maybe doing a little bit more than that, but that the likelihood of going beyond that is probably slim, like you said, but that there is a sense of, hey, this team doesn't seem like it's going to get worse from here, and maybe that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I think you've seen the arrow pointing up, upward trajectory of this franchise finally looks like it's happening. And yeah, that I think is what builds the excitement, is because there's still, even if this team is a 5-game out in the first round of the playoffs, you get excited for what might come next year as some of these young players get better. You haven't mortgaged the future for 1 or 2 playoff runs. Like you seem to be set up to keep this thing going for a little while. And I think that's what's exciting about it.
Read Chris Hine's coverage, Star Tribune, StarTribune.com. As always, Chris, good to catch up with you, and we'll do this again soon.
Thank you, Michael.
Good stuff from Chris Hine. And like we talked about, this team on a roll, have a chance to win 6 in a row for the first time since that 2003-2004 season. That's amazing. That shows you the futility that this team has gone through since then. That team, of course, made it to the Western Conference Finals. They finished that regular season on a 9-game winning streak. So if the Wolves can beat Oklahoma City on Wednesday night, chance to extend their win streak to 6 for the first time in, I guess, what amounts to more like 18 calendar years. And if they win tonight, decent chance to extend it to 7 when they play Orlando on Friday. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. They got to take care of business tonight, a kind of game they've been winning lately. Let's see if they can do it again. Wild. Good game. They looked good. They looked kind of like they kind of recaptured some of that sharpness, recaptured some of that focus. And you guys, they won the face-off battle against the Rangers. They won the game 5-2, and they won the face-off battle 29-23. Now, maybe the face-off stuff gets a little bit overblown, because, the difference between the best face-off team in the league and the worst is, it's small percentage points. But it kind of comes down to, can you win a face-off when you need to, more so than just the raw percentages. And the Wild are, among the worst teams in the league in the dot this season. So good to see them have a game where they win those face-offs, and as maybe not as a direct result, but the results followed. They beat the Rangers 5-2, 2 goals from Kevin Fiala, solid play from Cam Talbot, and good just up and down the lineup performance. So that is what they needed, and they got it on Tuesday. Let us finish with the cooler. Major League Baseball sounds like there's a little bit of progress here. We've been fooled before with this alleged progress, but we're hoping now that these marathon talks Tuesday will yield some good news today, tomorrow, sometime in the very near future. Sounds like the league has budged a little bit on some competitive balance tax stuff, raising some minimum salaries. We'll see how that plays with the players and what they want as well. But something to monitor today. If you're missing baseball, that piece of it could be getting a little bit better soon. That will do it for today's show. State Representative Pat Garofalo will be on Thursday's show talking sports betting. New bills coming out earlier this week. Looks like the legal pathway is on. It's on the way in Minnesota. It sure seems like, although a lot to happen before that gets to the finish line. We will talk about that with Pat Garofalo on Thursday's show. Thanks so much for joining me here today on Daily Delivery. I'm Michael Rand. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday, and we'll see you again tomorrow.